Most people think intelligence reveals itself through knowledge, but watch carefully. The people with the lowest intelligence often reveal themselves through behavior long before they speak about ideas. Have you ever noticed how some people constantly create chaos around themselves, ruin opportunities, damage relationships, and still believe they are the smartest person in the room? The strange thing about human nature is that low intelligence rarely looks weak. Very often, it looks confident, loud opinions, impulsive reactions, endless certainty. And because of that, many people never recognize it, not in others, and sometimes not even in themselves. I am the watcher, and here, in Shadow Insight, we observe the hidden mechanisms behind human behavior. In this episode, you will discover 7 behaviors that quietly reveal low intelligence, even when someone appears socially confident, successful, or dominant. But the most disturbing part is this. The final behavior is the one most people defend without realizing it slowly destroys their ability to think clearly. And once you notice it, you begin seeing it everywhere. If human behavior fascinates you, subscribe to Shadow Insight, and tell me in the comments, what behavior instantly makes you question someone's intelligence? Low intelligence rarely announces itself directly. It leaks through patterns, small reactions, repeated habits, predictable emotional impulses. And with time, you begin to notice something strange. The least intelligent people are often the ones most convinced of their own superiority. Have you ever wondered why some people refuse to listen, even for a few seconds? You try to explain something, they interrupt immediately, not because they understand better, but because they cannot tolerate the possibility of being wrong. This is the first behavior, an inability to truly listen. Not occasional impatience, everyone does that sometimes, but a deeper pattern. They enter conversations already convinced they know everything. You see it everywhere, at work, in families, online. Someone reacts emotionally before even understanding what was said. They don't analyze, they defend. And the strange thing is, they often mistake emotional intensity for intelligence. The louder they react, the smarter they believe they sound. But intelligent people usually do the opposite. They pause, they observe, they ask questions first. Because real intelligence understands something the ego hates to accept. You cannot learn while protecting your pride. The second behavior is even more revealing. Low intelligence often comes with an addiction to immediate reactions. Everything becomes impulsive. A message arrives, instant anger. A disagreement appears, instant aggression. A frustration happens, instant emotional collapse. No distance, no reflection, just reaction. Have you ever noticed how some people destroy entire relationships over temporary emotions? A single misunderstanding, one moment of humiliation, one wounded ego, and suddenly, years of trust disappear. Intelligent people are not emotionless, but they understand that emotions are temporary states, not commands. Low intelligence struggles with this distinction. The emotion arrives and instantly becomes reality. This is why impulsive people often repeat the same mistakes for years while blaming everyone else. Because reflection requires mental discipline. And mental discipline is invisible. No one applauds it. No one sees it. But without it, human behavior becomes dangerously predictable. Watch carefully. The real problem is not lack of knowledge. Many unintelligent people actually consume enormous amounts of information. Videos, quotes, podcasts, opinions. But information alone does not create intelligence. Because intelligence is not measured by what enters the mind. It is measured by what the ego allows to survive inside it. This is where the third behavior appears, an obsession with always being right. Have you ever noticed how some people become visibly uncomfortable the moment they are corrected? Even gently, even respectfully. Something inside them reacts immediately. Not because the correction is painful, but because their identity depends on appearing superior. Adler believed that many human behaviors are driven by hidden feelings of inferiority, and sometimes, arrogance is simply insecurity wearing armor. The person speaks with certainty, acts dominant, dismisses others, but underneath that behavior, there is often fear. Fear of appearing small, fear of losing control, fear of realizing they are less capable than they imagined. So instead of learning, they protect the illusion. This leads to the fourth behavior, Mocking intelligence itself. The strange thing about insecure people is that they often attack what intimidates them. Have you ever seen someone ridicule curiosity? Someone laughs at people who read, who analyze deeply, who ask complex questions, as if thinking carefully were somehow weakness. Nietzsche noticed something disturbing about human nature. People sometimes resent what reminds them of their own limitations, and instead of growing, they attack. This is why low intelligence often hides behind sarcasm, not humor, sarcasm. Because sarcasm creates distance from vulnerability. If everything becomes a joke, nothing has to be examined seriously. No introspection, no self-questioning, no uncomfortable truths. Only mockery, only deflection. But intelligent people usually become more curious with time, not more arrogant. Because the deeper you understand reality, the more you realize how much you still ignore. And that realization changes the entire way a person behaves. This is where the subject becomes darker, because low intelligence is not always harmless. Sometimes it becomes destructive. Have you ever wondered why certain people seem addicted to conflict? Not occasional disagreement, constant conflict. Drama follows them everywhere. Arguments never end. Every situation becomes personal. At first, it looks like bad luck, but with time, you begin to notice something deeper. Some people unconsciously create chaos because chaos protects them from self-reflection. Silence is dangerous for them. Calm moments force awareness. Awareness forces responsibility, and responsibility threatens the ego. So they remain emotionally noisy, always reacting, always blaming, always finding enemies. This is the fifth behavior, an inability to take responsibility. Low intelligence often survives through external blame. The boss is the problem, society is the problem, friends are the problem, family is the problem. Everyone becomes responsible, except the person creating the destruction. Freud believed that the human mind constantly protects itself from painful truths, and one of the strongest defenses is projection. People project their own flaws onto others because recognizing those flaws internally would damage their self-image. So instead of admitting jealousy, they accuse others of arrogance. Instead of admitting incompetence, they accuse others of sabotage. And the frightening part is this: after enough repetition, they genuinely believe their own narrative. This leads to the sixth behavior, a deep attraction to superficial validation. Low intelligence is often obsessed with appearances because appearances are easier to control than reality. Looking intelligent becomes more important than becoming intelligent. This is why some people desperately need to dominate conversations, display status, humiliate others publicly, or constantly prove themselves online. Not because they are powerful, but because validation temporarily silences insecurity. For a few moments, they feel superior. But superiority built on appearances is fragile, and fragile people become dangerous when reality threatens their image. That is why some of the most emotionally aggressive people are also the most intellectually insecure. Human nature always reveals itself eventually, but the final behavior is the most dangerous one, because modern society rewards it, encourages it, even celebrates it. Have you ever noticed how difficult it has become for people to sit alone with their own thoughts? No distraction, no scrolling, no stimulation, no noise, just silence. Most people cannot tolerate it anymore, and that reveals the seventh behavior, a constant need for mental distraction. Watch carefully. Low intelligence is not always lack of capacity. Sometimes it is the refusal to think deeply, because deep thinking creates discomfort. It forces people to confront contradictions, past mistakes, emotional wounds, false beliefs, and many people spend their entire lives escaping that confrontation. So they fill every empty second. Music, notifications, arguments online, endless content, constant stimulation. Not for entertainment alone, but for psychological escape. Jung believed that people avoid confronting the hidden parts of themselves because the shadow is uncomfortable to face. And the strange thing is, the more someone avoids introspection, the more controlled they become by unconscious behavior. They think they are choosing freely, but most of their reactions are automatic, conditioned, predictable, emotionally programmed. This is why many people repeat the same toxic relationships, the same self-destructive habits, the same emotional cycles, for years. Not because life never warned them, but because they never stayed still long enough to truly observe themselves. And here is the uncomfortable truth most people never realize. Intelligence is not only the ability to understand the world, It is the ability to understand yourself honestly, without excuses, without illusions, without constantly protecting the ego. Because someone can speak beautifully, appear confident, even appear successful, and still remain completely disconnected from reality internally. The most intelligent people are usually not obsessed with proving their intelligence. They are obsessed with seeing clearly, even when the truth hurts. So what do these 7 behaviors truly reveal? Not simply low knowledge, not lack of education, but something deeper, a resistance to awareness itself, an inability to pause, question oneself, control emotional impulses, or confront uncomfortable truths honestly. Watch carefully. The people who constantly interrupt, react impulsively, need to dominate, avoid responsibility, mock reflection, seek endless validation, and fear silence, are often revealing something invisible, a fragile mind trying to protect the ego from reality. And this was the hidden mechanism from the beginning. Low intelligence is not always about IQ. Very often, it is the inability to separate truth from ego. Because the ego wants comfort, it wants superiority, it wants protection. But intelligence demands something far more difficult: humility. The humility to admit mistakes, to rethink beliefs, to listen, to observe, to evolve. Human nature always reveals itself eventually, especially in moments where pride feels threatened. And maybe the most disturbing part is this: every person carries some of these behaviors inside themselves, including you, including me. The difference is whether we are willing to see them honestly or spend our lives hiding from them. I am the watcher, and here in Shadow Insight, we do not observe human behavior to feel superior. We observe it to understand the invisible forces shaping our lives. If this episode made you reflect differently on the people around you or on yourself, subscribe to Shadow Insight and tell me in the comments, which of these 7 behaviors do you notice most often in people today? But then, what happens the moment someone loses the ability to question their own mind?